Till yesterday we were seeing, I mean, the last class, last week, yesterday, and today we will be seeing balance of payment. We saw what is balance of payment, what are the features of balance of payment, what is the importance of balance of payment, what are the three components of balance of payment or three types of accounts that balance of payment records. We saw current account records, import and export of visibles and invisibles, and then it records government not elsewhere, that is a transaction where money is sent abroad or money is received from abroad to maintain embassies, consulates, ambassadors, etc. And then we also saw about another aspect of it, errors and omissions account was also seen, because since it is a double entry bookkeeping system, in case we miss out on one of the transactions, the amount can be posted somewhere there, somewhere where we actually are, wherever there is. So it is going to be unilateral payments also is going to be recorded in current account. Unilateral payment talks about those payments or receipts which you receive against which there is no good or service exchange. Then we spoke about capital account. Capital account spoke about loans, borrowings paid by private sector, public sector for short-term or long-term duration. We spoke about investments made for long-term or short-term duration. Then we went on to seeing what is FDI, what is FPI, right? Then today we will be seeing a little more on this. Why is balance of payment important for a country? Balance of payment records a country's economic transactions with the rest of the world. A country's BOP is very vital for these reasons which we are going to spell out. BOP of a country reveals its financial and economic status. BOP statement is used as an indicator to determine if the country's currency is appreciating or depreciating, and then it tells us about the government. It helps the government to decide on fiscal and trade policies. It also provides information to analyze and understand economic dealings of a country, whether they have more borrowing or if they have surplus funds which can be invested, or if they are paying off their debts properly. All these things, like when you see the interest rates paid on loans, you can see the amount of loans that the country has and how frequently is it servicing the debt. Servicing the debt means you are making frequent payments of interest and principal to other countries when you have borrowed from them. So when you study BOP statement and its components closely, you'll be able to identify the trends that may be beneficial or harmful to any economy, and thus you can take appropriate measures. Like for example, some country approaches me for loan. I can decide if I should lend to the country or not based on the amount of debt it has. I can decide if I should lend to the country, or if I want to invest into a country, is the country worth investing? Is there a potential? That can be seen only when I see the BOP statement. Now we'll talk about reserves and official settlement account. When I spoke in the last class, I mentioned to you that whatever receipts receipts or payments the country has, like for example, current account payments can be done out of capital account balance, right? So the same way, whatever net payments you will have to make, you will be settling out of the official settlement account. Like for example, there is a lot of outflow from current account. You have tried paying it out of the capital account. There is still some outflow pending. So what will I do? I will pay it out of my official settlement account, right? And then when I talk about reserves account, like for example, I have a lot of inflows from current account I have a lot of inflows from capital account. So all these inflows will be added to reserves. Reserves are nothing but a country's savings. Are you following? This is more pertaining to New York, US, etc. So we have basically reserves in what forms? I will be sharing my whiteboard now. We will discuss the types of reserves that we generally have. So reserves are nothing but country's savings. These savings can be in the form of forex reserves. When inflows exceed outflow, current account, capital account put together, I have more of inflows. I'm going to say it will be added to first forex reserves. Gold reserve. Gold reserve is bullion gold or non-monetized gold. I'm sorry, monetized gold we call it as. Monetized gold are the gold in reserve form with the RBI. These are not ornamental gold. And then IMF. We can have an account with IMF where we can have deposits within. Then we have SDR, special drawing rights, which is created by the IMF. You will see all these in detail later about SDR. So reserves will be added as foreign exchange. Reserves are country's savings. Whenever I have inflow minus outflow or inflow greater than outflow, which means you have more of money flowing in than money flowing out. It will be added to your forex reserve, gold reserve, IMF or SDR, right? So this is the most liquid form of asset or reserves. If it is going to be gets added to if there is more of outflow than inflow. I pay out. You will have to pay it out of your reserves. If outflow is greater than inflow, pay it out of your reserves through official settlement. It is called as officially settling, right? Account. So this is what it is. Your reserves and official settlement account. Now going back to the earlier share payment statement. It is going to see in depth as to what transactions of all import and export of goods have taken place during the period. And it helps the government to analyze the potential of any particular industry. If it is exporting, if it is growing, if it is formulating policy to support that. It gives the government a broad perspective on a different range of import and export tariffs, right? And the government then takes measures to increase or decrease tax so that to discourage import and encourage export. Why should a country encourage export and discourage import? So that it earns more revenue. When you're buying from outside, number one, your productive capacity remains unutilized. Number two, you will have to pay a lot for outsiders when you can produce it. So it results in a lot of wastage and be self-sufficient. Try to be happy with what you are instead of buying it from outside and trying to satisfy your need or demand. And if the economy or just support in the mode of import, the government also plans accordingly the BOP. And it will try to divert the cash flow and technology to unfavorable sectors of the economy and see future growth. Like if you feel I still need to import, like for example, earlier all these perfumes and electronic goods were not available in India much. So people going to Singapore, etc., they used to get it here. But then now if you see, we have imported the technology, trained our people, technical know-how is much higher. So we are doing them ourselves or We are having how to create our own goods instead of buying it from outside. And balance of payment also indicates the government to detect the state of economy and plan expansion, monetary and fiscal policy and establish on that. So whenever you find out which sector is weak, government can spend more and then work on improving that sector and trying to enhance productivity in that sector so that we produce ours and we can have suitable monetary and fiscal policy. Taxation can be altered, more money can be given into the economy. If there is inflation, cut down the money flowing to the people, increase tax rates, etc. Now, what is disequilibrium? Balance of payment most of the time when you record your expenditure and income. You either get, see, anytime you either get more outflow or more inflow. It is inflow not equal to outflow. Inequality between inflow and outflow is called as disequilibrium. There can be either surplus or deficit. If there is no surplus, no deficit, where inflow equal to outflow, we call it as an equilibrium in balance of payment, right? So now when there is actually inflow not equal to outflow, we call it as disequilibrium. Either inflow will be more or outflow will be more, especially in countries like India, emerging economies. There is always outflow more than inflow. And causes could be because of economic factors. Because you may import more, export less, wherein you end up paying more of more to the outsiders. When you import more, you're paying more to the outsiders, and when you export less, you receive less. So that imbalance creates and a disequilibrium in your balance of payment. And then there is also large scale development expenditure. Just 1 second, I'll just make an annotation here in the earlier slide. I'll just make an annotation here. Inflow equal to outflow gives me equilibrium. So just remember this. Inflow equal to outflow is equilibrium. Inflow not equal to outflow is disequilibrium. Surplus or deficit always indicates disequilibrium. The causes we saw were, what were the causes? Economic factors, right? So when I say economic factors, if it is imbalance between import and export, when you export more and import less, it's a surplus. When you import more, export less, it's a deficit. Large scale development expenditure which causes large imports. What happens is when you're in the development phase, like when you'll have to develop your technology, when you'll have to develop your infrastructure, communication, transportation, you will be importing a lot of capital goods, maybe even hard goods or maybe used in construction industry. Maybe you will be importing some technology, or you may import people to help you with developing projects, etc., for which you will have to pay a lot. So this causes a large amount of outflow of money. And apart from that, when domestic prices are high, this leads to import. If there is inflation in the economy, a good that costs rupees 2, you are able to sell it at, you are selling it at 5. What happens? Then people will prefer purchasing it from other countries if they are getting it at rupees 3 because they are able to save 2 rupees on it, right? So you start importing a lot because imports are, imports are cheaper than domestic prices. Talking about cyclical fluctuations like recession, depression, if you remember, we we have spoken a lot about all these economic cycles. Last term, we spoke about business cycle fluctuation, where the economy goes through these phases: recovery, expansion, boom, peak, recession, depression, and trough. Do you remember that? Hill-like figure. You remember we did something like this. We did something like this, if you remember, right? And then this was my peak, and sorry, peak was on the side. Yeah, peak, and this was my trough, right? Recovery, expansion, boom, peak, recession, depression, and trough. Are you following this? So when we saw this, it always causes when there is recession, depression, etc., there is no transaction that a country can put through, like they cannot export. Nobody buys from you, nobody invests in you. On the other hand, you start borrowing money from the others, and at the same time, when you borrow money, you also pay interest, and when you you start importing because your business activities are down when there's recession, depression, etc. So you start importing a lot of goods, there is outflow. Whereas when it is on the other side, boom, expansion, peak, etc., you export a lot. And when you export a lot, you are going to be receiving a lot of money. People will start investing into you. So this is going to cause ups and downs in money inflow and outflow. Apart from that, new sources of supply and new substitutes. So when you start substituting your foreign technology with local technology, you are going to save on the money that goes out. When you are going to, or if you are going to do it the other way around, foreign technology with local technology, you are going to import. When you are replacing local technology with foreign technology or domestic technology with foreign technology, you are saving on the money that you are importing. Talking about political factors, political instability and political disturbances, people will not take a risk of transacting with you when there is political disturbance. People will refrain from transacting with you. They will not want to have a export-import transaction with you, or trade transaction with you, or investment transaction with you. And on the other hand, you will start buying a lot from foreign countries because you are not able to handle the prices and other kind of restrictions that your nation is putting through, right? So that is what, and again, inflow of foreign capital will also be hindered, or they will be interrupted. Changes in fashions, tastes, preferences of the people brings disequilibrium in POP, influencing imports and exports, which means, like for example, earlier when we were wearing only traditional wear, we had a this thing. Later on, when we started using modern outfits, Western outfits, we had to import some of them also. Ray-Ban glasses were imported. There were a lot of other things that was imported. I mean, foreign thing, whatever, police brand का glasses आता था, वो import किया हमने. आज सब कुछ मिल रहा है हमें, right? India में. You don't need to go to America to buy an American product. You can get it at the same price, which means they are imported, right? When you import, you are paying higher amount. Export, if some other country demands your products, you are exporting. And therefore, what happens? When you export goods, you receive money. So again, due to changes in fashion, the changes in fashion, if people are demanding more of your goods, what will happen? You will have more exports, more inflow. If you demand others' goods, very good. If you demand others' goods, you are going to be importing more and you will have a lot of outflow. Now, high population growth in poor countries adversely affect balance of payment because people start demanding goods and services When your local economy is not, or domestic economy is not able to produce so much to satisfy their demand, you resort to importing these goods. And this decreases the capacity to export because you are not producing them. Only when you produce, you can even think of exporting. When you start buying from outside, it is quite obvious that you are going to be importing them and you are going to be buying from outside and satisfying your country's population demands. Any doubts so far? Now, what are the measures? These were the measure causes of disequilibrium, inflow not equal to outflow, surplus or deficit. Most often in countries like India, other emerging countries, there is a deficit where outflow is more than inflow. Measures to correct this kind of a disequilibrium is sustained prolonged deficit has to be settled by short-term loan or depletion of capital reserve of foreign exchange and gold. Like for example, what happens is, in case I want to correct my disequilibrium, I will start borrowing. When there is too much of outflow, I will borrow money from outside on short-term basis. It also causes my capital reserves to deplete. Like for example, I may take it out of my capital reserve of foreign exchange and gold. Whatever reserves I have, if there is more outflow, I will take it out of whatever I have already accumulated. If that is also not helping, that is a short-term measure, but then it will not help for too long. I may borrow. How long can I borrow? Continuous borrowing will put my country under terrible trouble. Therefore, even if I take out of the reserves, one day reserves will be exhausted. So where will I go? So I have to start resorting to measures which will help me in the long run.